away so that you can see it. The president is on the ground here in Great Falls.
Carlin, I'm actually on the 9th Street Bridge right now, and right behind me, right directly behind me, is where the body was discovered earlier today. This is just one of the 480 hives that were recovered in California. Now, when thieves got a hold of them, they actually split them in half to create 2 hives, therefore having more of a profit. Now, local firemen are headed out to Seattle this weekend to take part in the Scott Firefighter Stair Climb. Now, not only do they have to climb 69 flights of stairs, they also have to wear their full firefighter gear.
Here at the Flathead Valley Community College, these empty seats will soon be filled with community members and mentors ready to watch how 19 students from across the country took their dreams from paper and put it onto the big screen. Every time a bus comes back to the Big Sky bus lines for the day, the drivers are required to go through and make sure that every child that's gotten on the bus is off the bus. As you can see, the water is just raging down Main Street, and I'm only on the sidewalk, and I can feel the power of this water just rushing over my feet. This water might look like it's the perfect place to take a dip. It's actually not. In fact, it's really the last place that you want to be wading through. Places like Giant Springs State Park is actually considered a gateway to the bigger national parks in the area, and they all rely on those tourism dollars. So when you come here, you can get these little envelopes and put them right into this slot with your donation. Carlin, nothing says Montana more than a gun show, and as you can see behind me here at Montana Expo Park, Four Seasons Arena is filled with over 600 vendors. But guns and ammunition is not the only thing that you can get here. Let's go down and take a look. That's right, the trial itself lasted just under 2 days, and it took a total of 3 hours for the jury to find William Arocha Jr. guilty, but not for second-degree murder. Ty Abar states on his website he hasn't been a white supremacist for 20 years. In fact, he says he only got involved with the group to please his father. This is just one of the 480 hives that were recovered in California. Now, when thieves got a hold of them, they actually split them in half to create 2 hives, therefore having more of a profit.
30 years ago, they paid $30 a hive. Now it's $200 and up. It's not something, you know, these guys went and stole 480 colonies of bees one night, and they got paid $200 a colony for them to put them in the almonds. So to break down the math, when they split the hive in 2, they get 960 hives. At $200 a hive, thieves can make almost $200,000 from one crop pollination round. And then they turn around and tried to sell them, and they'll sell all the bees off, and they'll get paid again. So they made hundreds of thousands of dollars.
In January, Cunniff gave California law enforcement pictures of his stolen hives, which were then sent all over the state. He says during an investigation in California, his hives were found. The case is being handled by the Agricultural Task Force in Fresno County, and he says it's now become part of a bigger crime ring.
They're Ukrainians, and the way I understand it is a lot of them are refugees that came here 5 years ago.
I reached out to the investigating officer in California to find out when and if there will be federal charges laid, but was unable to speak with him. The Cunniff's bees are home and will be in quarantine to make sure they are not sick.
They're going to keep checking the bees all summer, and if they keep looking like this, Lloyd said come fall, he's going to be one happy beekeeper. Reporting in Shoto, I'm Rachel CrowsSpreadingWings. Back to you. Well, the winds are gusting, and as of today, the National Weather Service tells us that 78 inches of snow have fallen in the month of February alone. Now, take a look at this map. Earlier today, there was no way in or out of Browning, and all the roads were closed by the Montana Department of Transportation. They're slowly starting to open, which literally is paving the way for help.
Here's going through by Livermore.
It seems to be a never-ending battle. If snow's not falling, it's blowing and creating more than just a headache for those trying to get help.
And if you're plowing that day, then you're plowing again the next day. It's just over and over and over. It becomes a very extreme hardship on some of our rural residences.
It's been 16 days since the beginning of the storm. Last week, as we reported, tribal members are working together to make sure people are getting help. And with no end in sight, DeRocher says it's now a waiting game.
We have an army of snow plows and snow blowers and backhoe tractors and loaders. And, you know, those guys have been working in some cases around the clock. You know, my hat's off to them. They're doing an excellent job. But, however, there's nothing we can do about the wind and the snow.
DeRocher hopes the community understands they are doing the best they can.
The Blackfeet Nation doesn't provide plow service just to be plowing the streets. You know, the first day of the storm, we had over 65 calls. Second day of the storm, we had 90 calls, but most of the calls we have to prioritize, and we are trying to service the ones that are emergencies. We have some snow drifts that are 20 foot deep. We have piles of snow on top of piles of snow with no place for them to go. You know, we're just covered up this winter, but we're maintaining pretty well.
Right now, the best thing people can do is look after each other, especially the elderly and those with medical conditions. Over in the Babb area, some have been able to get out, but are currently snowed back out of Babb and stuck in Browning. As the storms continue to rage across the Rockies, many are left wondering what will happen when the snow melts and will they be stranded due to flooding. But only time will tell Mother Nature's plans. Reporting in the newsroom, I'm Rachel CrowsSpreadingWings, Montana Right Now. There are still families who are waiting to pick up their children. Now, it will take 2 Chinook helicopters that seat a total of 32 passengers, 4 trips to get everyone back to Great Falls safely. The last thing you expect after sending your child off to a summer camp is getting a call or an email saying they're trapped in the mountains with floodwaters rising so high there's no getting out. Surprisingly, many parents weren't even alarmed.
We live in Montana, come on. You know, when we drove up to camp, the roads were actually so bad that a pastor that was coming took my daughter the rest of the way because we couldn't even make it up there at the beginning. So
my son Gus is pretty experienced in the mountains, and so I wasn't that worried about it.
For 12-year-old Halia Peterson, this is the best trip to Bible camp she's ever had.
We found out that we got to ride out in helicopters and everybody started like screaming and clapping. It was amazing.
She says this experience has opened her eyes to future possibilities and maybe one day even flying a Chinook helicopter herself.
And we're learning about how God sees us in perspective, and that kind of gave me an image about how he sees us because everything was so small.
Executive Director Paul Hill says once they knew the road could wash out, they started making plans.
I spent all day yesterday contacting the local search and rescue guys and coordinating an effort to transport our kids out, because at that point it really became apparent that we weren't going to be able to get parents in safely or us to drive kids out safely, and that was our #1 priority, is to make sure those kids are safe.
Despite the continuing rain, rising floodwaters, and getting airlifted out, everyone's in really good spirits. And of course, it was the teamwork that made it all possible. Reporting in Great Falls, I'm Rachel CrowsSpreadingWings, Montana Right Now. The water is just raging down Main Street, and I'm only on the sidewalk, and I can feel the power of this water just rushing over my feet. Community members are filling hundreds of sandbags to help redirect the water.
So I think about probably 7:30. It was pretty clear that the creek had overtopped its banks upstream of town, and was coming into town for sure.
Was your house at risk right now, or are you?
My house at risk, yeah. The creek has come to us.
He says last night they saw almost 7 inches of water. Lewis and Clark County Deputy Jerome Steiner says overnight rain could raise the floodwaters even higher.
Right now, you cannot get into the town of Augusta. We only want locals here. All the traffic that you see on the roads are people that are running sandbags or going to help our locals. But if you're driving from Choteau south on 287 to get to Augusta, you'll have to turn around at Highway 21.
Adding roads are washing out, so be careful because things can change fast. Right now, they're working on a place for people to stay who can't get home. He says the areas and buildings they could use are underwater. There are reports of one bridge that has been taken out by the floodwaters near the junction of Highway 21 and 287. Right now, there's no telling how much damage will be done by the floodwaters as they continue to rise overnight. Reporting in Augusta, I'm Rachel CrowsSpreadingWings, Montana Right Now. Now, 5 years ago, Malmstrom Air Force Base was rocked with scandal involving missile launch officers cheating on tests. The 9 people involved and the commander at the time were fired by the Air Force. Good evening, Montana. Thank you for joining us. I'm Rachel CrowsSpreadingWings. Following a 4-car car crash late Saturday night, 62-year-old Glenn Wilkinson is being charged with aggravated DUI, and careless driving. Great Falls police responded to the crash on the 9th Street Bridge. They say a 10-year-old and a 5-year-old were in one of the vehicles. Injuries were reported, but no word on the extent of those injuries. Allison, there's been some flash flooding going on. Tell us about it.
Oh yeah, we are now under a flash flood warning in a...
Thanks, Allison. Hope everybody's safe. Today, multiple agencies in both Missoula and Lake counties are still looking for a Dixon woman last seen Saturday, June 16th in Missoula. Investigators say a body found in Helena is of the man who's been missing since December. And the owner of a company that has the bus contract for a northwestern Montana school district faces charges for allegedly possessing and selling methamphetamine and smoking it. And Allison, you know, I think that would have been really fun today.
Oh, yeah.
I went for a run this morning and I didn't even think about the color run that was going on, so I'm sorry.
I know, it was so fun. I've done it once before. A blast, perfect weather for it here in Great Falls, though a little bit of rain. Can't quite say the same though for northern Montana right now.
Okay.
Yeah, especially around Shelby, Montana, crazy flooding.